Hello, my name is Travis Starr. Today is Monday, September 30th, 2024. Today's my brother's birthday, so I've already called him and told him happy birthday. And now I'm picking up where I left off on the 27th of September. I made some videos that were long-winded and I didn't like, but I might use them, later on just because there's just a lot of truth in them. So on the 27th, on the 26th, I met with my doctor, Andrea Storjahan. Andrea Storjahan I suppose she's nationally renowned now. She's done several articles for the New York Times. She's a psychological nurse practitioner. Um, and she's been walking me through this process, this divorce process, and helping me to navigate my remedies, um, that will have to come and have to wait for just a little bit longer. Um, so anyway, when it came to updating her on what happened at the last court date, um, after she kind of digested it and said, "Wow," um, she wanted me to contact YSS and Micah if needed, to see if we can't set up a situation where my children could be brought to Tama, and YSS would help me and Heather find like a social worker who could be here in Tama, because YSS is not operating in Tama per se. Micah is here, and Carrie Sodders helps to run that entity, that nonprofit, and Carrie is someone I've worked with in the past. Carrie's someone that Heather works with now still, and she's a family friend. But Andrea didn't want me, calling in favors and going to Andrew Allen or Carrie Sodders right now. She said it's important that you video this, or because she's dealt with this in the past. She's seen it 100 times if she's seen it once, and she let me know even a little bit about her and her husband's own story with their first child. Look, adultery can happen. It can happen if you're drinking alcohol, if you're smoking marijuana, if you're doing any other drugs at any age. The likelihood of something like that happening to a married person goes up. I mean, why does anyone drink, really, especially when we're young, if that's not a part of it? And certainly it's a part of it with my wife. I don't think she's had sex in her entire life without being intoxicated. And I'm a recovering alcoholic. I don't know how many years now, 2005, so almost 20 years, with just one minor hiccup. And I don't drink. I don't drink. I don't drink a bottle of wine every night. But anyway, she wanted me to call YSS and try to set up a visit. And if I can't set up a in-person visit, or if something just doesn't work, then I should have them help me with like Zoom visits on the computer, which is something that we've done before, Heather and I, when I was traveling and working in Arkansas. So why we wouldn't be doing that now, in light of my financial situation and driving situation and work situation that Heather literally put me in as the civil plaintiff. I don't know why that wouldn't be. I don't know why she would want to prevent that. Well, I do. I do know why she would want to prevent that. I mean, she doesn't like me to talk about it, but it's the truth. And in talking with Andrea Storjahan about this, she shared a little bit of her experience with this, with her and her husband Mitch, who Andrea was a year younger than Heather and I. Mitch Dorsahan was our same age, and Mitch Dorsahan was a friend of mine, more so a friend of mine than Heather's. Heather certainly knew who he was. He went on to become a Marine and is a traveling nurse. Just a great guy, great scientist. So it can happen in life where married people commit adultery and they have sex outside of their marriage. In the Bible, the last sin that Jesus forgave was to a woman named Ahula. And Ahula had 2 little children. It doesn't say whether they're boys or girls or one or the other. And her husband was a shoemaker. On the way into Jerusalem, there's a gate. And that's where her shoemaker husband worked. And he was really well known. He made everybody's shoes. So this gal was found, supposedly, in the act of having sex with someone who's not her husband. So they brought her before the court, and the Pharisees and the Sadducees and whoever was there was trying to trick Jesus on what the law was, stoning to death. What can be done in this situation? So they're trying to trick Jesus. Jesus is writing in the sand, and they ask him the question, what should be done here? And he looks at all the men holding rocks, probably all men, I doubt there were women, but looked at all the men, and he said, "Let him among you, or he among you, who has no sin, throw the first stone." That's it. They all yielded to the truth that was inside of themselves. They knew that they had all sinned. And at some level, everyone knows what Peter didn't know. Peter was one of these guys who thought there were different levels of sin. Some people are worse than others. And Jesus spent his entire time teaching Peter that from his point of view, all sin kind of forgives the same, no matter what it is. And he just could never wrap his head around that. And I've been thinking in my situation with my wife, like, what if the story was, do you think the story could ever be that society or Jesus or anyone later finds out that she's pregnant by this event? Does that change what Jesus does? Does he say, okay, kill her? Okay, she's pregnant, kill her. No, he doesn't. He doesn't. Now, the other thing I need to say right now, because it's bothering me and I'm paying attention to it, is my teeth. I'm really embarrassed by this. Heather told me one time, she was like, if you ever lose your teeth, I'm divorcing you. And I've not lost my teeth. I've not lost any of my teeth. I've got 5 teeth that had cavities, I guess, behind them. So I got fillings behind them. 2 here on either side, and then 1 more right beside it. So 5 total teeth in my whole mouth that have cavities. Well, and after, I think the last time I went to the dentist was in 2018. Here it is, 2024, about to be 2025. That's a long time. And so all of those fillings fell out. And so there would be, like, depending on how they were in my mouth, there would be like gaps in my teeth where there's just nothing, just air there. And so just by eating, you break them. And I broke them off. And I'll tell you one more thing before we get around to calling YSS. On the morning of August 4th, 2021, before we went to Adventureland, and I knew that my wife had done this. She had sex on September 11th, 2013, and she'd gotten pregnant with our son. And I had just been lying about it the whole time. And I had just been waiting for her to tell the truth, because I knew I was going to forgive her. I knew how I wanted to handle it. She didn't know any of this because she thinks she knows everything. But there's no one on the planet who knows what Jack is going through or going to go through still. And I do, because I have the same exact story, nearly the same exact story. And Heather doesn't even know the whole of that. So we had that event, and then of course the boss, Carl Weems, who was represented, counseled by Nicole Facio, and so she's just really, she's scared to death. I mean, she's just as scared now as she was when she looked up at me when Jack was born and said, after like a 3-day labor, and said, "Oh no, he doesn't look like Madison. Oh no, he doesn't have the same blood type as Madison. And I don't have the same blood type as my brother either, who I just called today for my birthday. And we don't have the same blood type because we don't have the same dad." So for us as Christians, not as plaintiffs and defendants, that's what's kind of behind everything for us, for our family, for Heather's salvation, for my salvation, for Jack, for Madison, for Heather's extended family, who also doesn't have the truth. Or her mother does. Her mother knows. I know her mother knows. Her mother knew right away. Her mother knew right away. She came in like Jack was maybe 2 months old, and she looked right at him and said, She didn't say, she asked a question. She didn't make a statement. She said, because she knew the answer to it. She said, who do you look like? I don't think Heather was in the room. It was just me and her mom, and her mom's memory of a certain person. So anyway, that's what Heather and I need to work on. And right now, what has happened in the interim is a lot of judges, a lot of government workers, some private attorneys have done some very bad things. And instead of coming out and saying, "I'm sorry, or I made a good faith mistake or a bad faith mistake. Please forgive me. I'm going to do this in the interest of justice, and I'm going to fix it." Like, none of them do that. And now I realized I've gone on too long again, so I'm going to stop this one and do another one because I don't like it. Hello, my name is Travis Starr. The date is September 30th, 2024. It's a Monday morning. It's about 10:13 a.m., so it's getting a little bit late. I wanted to start this at about 9 a.m. I have been to see my doctor, Andrea Storjahan, in Marshalltown. That's a Tuesday. She's a psychological nurse. She's also a practitioner, so I don't know exactly what her doctorate is, but she's a nurse practitioner, so she does everything that she does, plus she prescribes medicine and comes up with health plans and stuff like that. So she and I are of the same mind when it comes to dealing with loss and overcoming an adversity. I'm going to skip a whole lot of that just because I've taken care of it in other videos. But what she wants me to do today is she wants me to call YSS, and she wants me to see about getting a visitation with my children, Madison and Jackson. And it can be worked out several ways. They can travel here, and their mom has a duty to bring them here under the law as the custodial parent. So there is no YSS here in South Tama, Iowa. And just like in 2021 when I tried to do this, there was no YSS there then, because the one gal that they did have paid to do these sorts of things through YSS was in the process of leaving. And so but we weren't able to do it then. So we're going to call YSS here, and I'm going to record us doing it. So Dr. Storjahan said that I needed to do this because, how else do I prove all the things that I'm doing and have been doing to get in touch with my children unless I record it? And she's seen a lot in Marshalltown with poor people, with just calamity like you wouldn't believe, and fighting over children and visitations and stuff like this, and different things that the government might try to do to a father who's not deserving of what they're doing to him. So I took her advice and I thought, okay, I'll do that. I'll call YSS and try to set up a visitation or even a Zoom meeting. That's another thing. I got a hold of Heather's attorney, like in jail. I've got a hold of Heather's attorney in jail. Every time I get a hold of Heather's attorney, I end up getting charged by the county attorney with some, you sent a Christmas card to your children that was supplied to you by the jail for that purpose. And the content of your speech was such that we don't like it. So we're going to put you in jail for 4 months. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding you. That was the whole deal the last time. I was convicted for 4 months on 3 charges for my speech in a Christmas card, which quoted a legal maxim and quoted a passage out of the Bible, and then some other writing that I had been jailed on 3 times now. Not double jeopardy, but triple jeopardy. And that happened. That happened to me. It's a little hard to accept, and I'm not going to ever accept it. Of course, they all know that I'm going to sue every one of them, whether it be for defamation, official misconduct under Chapter 7021, professional misconduct under Chapter 51 for judges and people they control, Chapter 32 for lawyers and people they control, and intentional interference with marital and parental consortium of rights, which the consortium is society, affection, love, companionship, championship, among other things. So I'm going to hit pause here, and we're going to call them, and all we want to do is kind of make a record of it, and we're going to do it right now. So let me hit pause, and then we'll call YSS, okay? Thanks. Hello. Good morning. My name is Travis Starr. It is October 1st, Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. It's 11:45 a.m. And yesterday we learned that YSS isn't even providing the supervised visitation service for divorced couples, for county attorneys, they're not doing that anymore. And they wrapped it up either at the very beginning of June or the very ending of June, which they also said that they didn't advise anyone unless they had unless they had an account open and had been paying money since January of 2024. They didn't advise husbands or wives or mothers or fathers. They did advise if you had an account and you were a mother or a father who was using the service, you got advised. And then they also let all the county attorneys know, all the law enforcement, and any attorney that they had communications with or dealings with in the past. Of course, they all got knowledge of this. So it doesn't really matter. Heather's or Nicole Facio filed the petition to destroy or to what's the word? To take away my parental rights of every kind. In August. I didn't get it until middle August of 2024. So if she knew that YSS wasn't providing these services anymore, then she's kind of intentionally. So next up is Nicole Facio, and we're going to let her know that what we found out about YSS as respectfully as we can do it. So, gonna hit pause here. We're gonna get ready to call Nicole Facio, who's at New Point Law Firm, and I knew her old law firm to be Newbrow, and I didn't know anything about. I didn't know anything about New Point. And so I had, when I've gotten a hold of her at jail, and I've gotten a hold of her in here once, recently, I got a hold of her a lot more than once, but here recently in the last 2 weeks, I had been using pleadings, paper pleadings that I had on me. And so I looked it up on the internet today to save some time, and I was a little bit astonished to find, skipped a beat, that New Point Law Firm is Paisley and Singer Law Firm, and they of course had a great reputation. Jane Matheson was a well-known adoption attorney and domestic attorney, and well-respected. She would never hurt a man or a mom or a dad or a child. I mean, she was trying to do the most good for most people most often, and it didn't matter who was paying her. She was just a great lady, and she paid a lot of attention to me in 2015 when I moved here, because Larry Curtis, who used to be a mayor of Ames, Frank Fielmeyer, Larry Curtis, Jane Matheson, John Timmons, and I think John Tillo had been there. And in 2015, they offered me a job to come in and do some business law, and if I could get bankruptcy up to go, to do that too. But the pay-in, as I recall, was like astronomical. But Larry Curtis made it sound like, we say you have to pay all this money to us, and that's why we're hiring you, because you're going to end up paying us. But we help you out or something like that, he said. And I didn't end up taking it. And but here recently, when I was getting out of jail and I was thinking about reaching out to attorneys to help me from Ames, Frank Fielmeyer and Jane Matheson were on my mind. Jane, of course, is now retired. Larry Curtis, God bless his yellow dog Democrat soul, is Larry Curtis might have just hired me for my Al Gore and Bill Clinton stories. he was just a great American. He was a great lawyer. He was a great person. But so now all these people that are left, like Tillo's son and my son are in the same age, and Tillo's little boy has hair kind of like you might think that mine was when it was little. It's just curly and wavy. It's all over the place. But like I said, I've said it time and time again in these videos. I don't want to hurt Nicole Facio. I don't think she's gone along to get along. She's helped Heather perpetuate a fraud that she knows. She's done some kind of bad things. She has. But out of all the people who have done bad things, who are professional lawyers, something inside of me says she's one who can understand what she's done wrong and why it's wrong. She's one that I think that if she gets her hand slapped hard, she doesn't even need her hand slapped hard. She just needs to internalize what's happened here. And she'll never do it again. I think she's one of those people who she doesn't have to lose everything to change for the better. And to make everyone around, all the other lawyers, all the other clients, so much better. To make herself, to become Jane Matheson, basically. So what do I do? Do I, if I get a hold of Frank or I get a hold of Tillo and say, hey, here's what's going on, dude. Here's an email. Here's some proof, and they're not me. They're going to say, oh, this is so bad. And that's going to make trouble for Nicole. I don't necessarily want to do that. I want her to start helping me. I want her to start building me and Heather up. I want her to take Carl Weems and throw all of his interests in the goddamn trash. Because she doesn't have to, just because he's an old client, she doesn't have to serve him still. If she's discovered that his interests are wrong and that he's been hurting people intentionally, Nicole can stop doing that under the model rules of professional conduct. So you can say, wait. This guy is doing things wrong. And I'm actually helping him perpetuate his frauds and his concealments and the things that he's doing wrong and the lies that he's telling and the sex that he's having with his employees, co-workers, subordinates, whatever you want to call it. And so it's just like, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. There's so many layers of things going on here that I know that I'm destined to have a hand in getting judges elected in the state of Iowa, copying and pasting Arkansas law or Minnesota law or North Dakota law or whoever else in the 8th Circuit is electing judges, to do away with the Judicial Qualifications Committee, to get some actual checks and balancers hired under the legislative branch umbrella, but paid out by the Department of Management and housed by IWD installations all over in the 8 judicial districts in an IWD building, 24 of them. 3 to each district. 1 has to be an attorney. And all they do is monitor Chapter 32, Chapter 51, Chapter 721, official misconduct, professional misconduct for judges and lawyers and people they control. So it's going to include jailers, county attorneys, county attorney staff, clerks, clerk staff. There may be a little bit of the two people doing the same thing, sort of, because the ombudsman's still going to have control over those low level, like the jailers and the clerk staff and the county attorney staff. But let's face it, these people generally are not doing anything wrong unless the higher ups are the ones that are starting everything, and then they're ratifying. The lower level ratifies and consents and goes along to get along, and no one in Iowa blows a whistle anymore. I guess they don't know how. They don't feel that they don't have the courage. They don't think that they're equal to the problem to be solved. So this has been a really big development. I don't feel like I can get a hold of Frank Fielmeyer or Larry Curtis. Well, of course I can't get a hold of Larry Curtis, but at least John Tillo or Frank Fielmeyer, because they're of course going to remember me. They're going to know my wife. They're going to know my son. They're going to know my daughter. They're going to know about the Carl Weems ISU sex scandal fiasco case that was settled for $250,000. It should have been settled for millions, considering that gal who called the governor up and said, "Hey, David Jameson from the Iowa Finance Authority, my boss, he said he would enjoy having sex with me in like an email or something like that, or out loud." And the governor ended up firing him, and the attorney general put $4 million in her hand. And Elizabeth Shercliffe files a sexual harassment lawsuit, not just from her husband and her children for their interest, her interest for being the victim, but they also, on a couple times, invited the husband to have sex. And all the Ames judges, everyone was just like, they couldn't maybe believe that this is going on. It's going on. Jonathan Fox. I don't need to get into it. But I'm going to try and call Nicole now, and I'm going to try from here forward not to hurt her. Jesus Christ. That's the thing with Nicole is she doesn't see me as an equal. She thinks she's better. She thinks she's smarter. She thinks she's all these things. Because you'd have to. I mean, you can't do what she's doing. You can't help people perpetuate fraud. You can't turn a blind eye to official misconduct by county attorneys. She obviously can't tell the county attorney no, or Joseph Naring no, or Carl Weems no, or Tiffany Meredith no, or Judge Ellison no. Anyway, let's call Nicole and just see how this goes. I'm going to pause this, turn it back on. Hi, Nicole. This is Travis. I just wanted to reach out and let you know I've been dealing in my kind of in the civil restraint case and in the divorce cases, and I'm starting up with my part of going out and coming back in and suing some people. And I got a hold of YSS back in 2021 and 2022 in the summer, and they had a gal named Gail who was working in. No. I'm not talking to you about the parental case. I'm not talking. I don't have anything to do with that. What I'm telling you is I got a hold of YSS again just on the 26th, on the 27th, and they're not even doing supervised visits anymore anywhere in the state of Iowa. And they told me that they quit doing it at the beginning of June of 2024. And so I asked, well, did you send anything? Because Andrew Allen and Carol Wormy are friends of mine and Heather's. And they said, well, we didn't send anything to you because we weren't receiving any money and doing any visitations from you from January to June. So I said, okay. But she said, we did send them to all the county attorneys, to all law enforcement, and to any attorneys that we had been dealing with. And so that was in the beginning of June, but I just wanted to let you know that. And I also wanted to let you know that I'm doing some things that I have to do for myself, and I don't. We're not talking about parental rights cases. We're talking about the cases that I represent myself in. Well, okay. So this is all I want to say is I'm looking for a way to do what I got to do, and I don't want you and Heather to be in trouble. I don't want you to be in trouble either. When I first got out of jail, I thought about the civil restraint in the divorce case. I thought I would call up Jane Matheson and Frank Fielmeyer and John Tillow, who were at Paisley Singer when we came to Ames, and they hired me. And I thought, well, when it gets to this county attorney and the sheriff and John Asmussen and some of the things I have to do, maybe I could just call up Frank and see how some Ames people could help me. Well, I'm glad that I checked on the internet because I had been getting your number from your paperwork, and I happened to look on the internet to get it one time, and that's when I realized that New Point is Paisley Singer. And I'm not going to call Frank, and I'm not going to call John. I'm not going to call anyone else about what this county attorney has done, what the sheriff has done, what the jailers have done. And I've got some discovery in those other two cases that I'm going to share with you about, Mike Kennedy, who's committed suicide, and Mike Webster, the people who run the recordings and who run the telephones and those things. And they're gonna tell the truth if they're subpoenaed in my cases that I'm gonna bring. And I just know in my heart that you and Heather don't have to get in trouble. You and Heather can just say, look, this thing got out of hand in a hurry, and there were a lot of other people making decisions. And I think you and Heather are people who could say, I'm sorry, this will never happen again. And then you would go on and be great. You would become the next Jane Matheson probably. And if you knew her before you were an attorney or while you're an attorney, you would know that she had a reputation for considering everybody's interest. And when she ever did it, well, here's the thing. We know, and I know, and you know, it's a matter of record at this point that Michael Kennedy was recording conversations and feeding them to Joseph Naring. Joseph Naring was giving them to you and to Heather. I was talking on the phone to attorneys who have privileges and to my pastor who has privileges, and they were saying things to Heather that Heather would only have knowledge if she had heard our conversations or knew about it. And, Mike Kennedy came to me on June 6th And I was in J unit all by myself, and he grabbed my leg. I had my eyes covered up, and he said, "Travis, I just want to tell you that I'm sorry for everything." And then he got a hold of himself, because he's kind of a gregarious guy. And he left and said, "I don't care what they say about you, Starr. I think you're a pretty good guy." So Kennedy, when I was arrested on 6/2/23, Kennedy calls, because we have the phone logs from the Tama Police and from the Tama Sheriff's Office. Kennedy calls the Sheriff's Office down here on 6/6/23 to have me arrested. There is no search warrant. There is no seizure warrant. My dad got drug out of bed naked. I got a rifle butt to the ribs. There's nothing in the case filed about a search and seizure warrant of any kind. Then, a year later, Kennedy does the same thing. And he's got the phone call here to the Tama Police and the Tama Sheriff. And I'm going to be arrested again. And I'm booked at like 1:30 or 2 in the afternoon, and then there's not even a bench warrant that issues from the county attorney probably until like 3:49. So Heather... Okay. Well, I think, well, I'm not talking about this parental rights case. I'm talking about the other 2 cases that I do represent myself in. And I think that what I would like to ask you for simply right now is the same thing I asked you for before I left jail. Is like, why can't she just Zoom me? Why can't we just have a Zoom meeting with my kids? I mean, I got all these criminals, all these horrible people visiting with their kids all day in jail, and I'm not visiting with my kids. I've got the phone records, again, from my entire jail stay. I was in jail for 70% of 3 years. And before you became the attorney, Heather and I were talking to each other every day, several times a day, 100% of the time. After you became the attorney, we never talked on the phone again. We did send letters. I sent tens and tens of letters that she accepted, for a very long time, until I got a hold of the ISU provost. So I just want to see my kids. I want to stop being prevented from seeing my children. Yeah, that's all been done years and years ago. But like the other thing too, when I was working on the well, it could, but I can't help. Yeah, that's kind of a prevented. Oh yeah, I mean, so you don't have any more communication. I'm talking about our contract, which if they don't agree, then they have to go schedule with YSS. That's impossible. It can't. No. Do you understand, right, how I have a 5-year no contact order? That's what I'm calling you about. You don't, though, because my wife went into that courtroom and she said, "I'd like 1 year no contact." I would like, well, you need to, because she said, "I'd like a 1 year no contact order, and I'd like a provision, a togetherness provision," she called it, where she said, "I'll control everything that Travis does. His coming, his going. Ellefson goes out, comes back in, and Ellefson says, we're going to go with 1 year. Heather didn't pray for 5 years no contact. I didn't pray for 5 years no contact. So how do you think that happened? Who did give? Well, why don't you do this? Why don't you ask her to lift this no contact order? Because Nicole, I'm trying to help you. Why don't you see that? We know. Wow. Unbelievable. Why are you doing this? Well, you haven't heard what I've said, and you haven't read anything. Obviously haven't read anything in the case files. I'm not talking to you about a parental rights case. I'm talking to you about civil restraint and divorce. The divorce agreement is what I'm talking to you about. All right, well, that didn't go as well as I hoped that it would. I really want to see my kids, and we should be talking on Zoom. This is ridiculous. This is just it's inhuman. Yeah, I'm not okay. All right. We'll see you, Nicole. Wow. She just she was listening up until the point about Mike Webster and Kennedy and them giving Michael Kennedy giving privileged conversations to Joseph Naring of the county attorney's office, and then Joseph then sharing them with Heather and Nicole. So how we know about that happening and Heather having that detail is we had a conversation. Tessica Dooley and I, and a privileged conversation where I came to full acceptance that holy crap, not only did Heather have sex with her boss in 2016, but this has been going on the whole time. And she's protecting him. Because at the time, at that same exact time, in that same exact conversation, I also knew that Shirtcliffe was across the hallway suing Carl Weems for sexual harassment and all this stuff. Heather filed for these things because she lied about Jackson's paternity, and I knew it. I wanted her to prove it, and I wanted her to fix it, and she didn't feel up to it. And she was having sex with her boss. I sent an email on June 9th of 2020. An email of June 9th of 2020. I sent an email to the entire family that she was having an affair with her boss, or she had an affair with her boss, and that she was lying about Jackson's paternity. So her family asked her about it. She lied about it, and then everyone said, "Okay, you gotta divorce him. There's nothing else for you to do." So in jail, Tessica Dooley and I have a conversation about that, and I am livid. And then by the end of the conversation, like I always do, I call back down, and Tessica's asking me, "Are you serious? Are you okay? You're not going to hurt anybody, are you?" no. And we have that conversation, and it's at the end of the recording. So the other thing that happened is after that conversation, every time me and my pastor, or me and any attorney friend of mine who was counseling me, or running messages between Heather and I, we would tell each other to give each other their privilege, and this is a confidential call, and this is not to be used, and blah, 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 blah. So after that day, every single letter that I wrote to Heather had kind of sections or parts that needed to be addressed. This phone call listening horseshit. Nicole being Carl Weems' attorney. Nicole not letting Heather say anything, answer anything about Carl Weems. So I have maybe 4,000 pages of writings, total evidence, pleadings. I don't know, maybe 3,000, maybe 2,000. I don't know, 2,000. Let's say it could be total over 3 years in 2 cases. So it's not just one case. Every piece of paper, 2,000, let's say. Maybe even 1,000. I don't know. 2,000. So Nicole Facio never wrote an answer. Anytime I brought up paternity, anytime I brought up affairs, anytime I brought up Carl Weems, they just didn't answer. Like, I have 10 requests for paternity tests, for paternity tests. What else? To modify this divorce agreement, that's null and void. And there's never an answer. They don't answer anything. Silence is kind of like a confession. But they wouldn't write anything because she didn't want to jeopardize Carl Weems, I think. I can't think of any other reason why an attorney wouldn't answer anything. And then the court never made her. I never got one default judgment. Anyway, so it's hard to be ignored too. Like, she knows. She knows. Yeah, so let's just dial it back from there and take a break. And anyway, once I got through, I would write Heather all these letters, and we would talk about the bad things her attorney did, the bad things Judge Ellefson did, the bad things Joseph Naring did. We would just talk about all of them, all those situations where there's no good faith, there's no good cause, there's no just cause, there's no true cause, there's no actual injury, there's really no standing, because none of this, she's lying about BB guns, and she's talking about bicycle helmets and seat belts, and there's so many different levels of factual confluence, operational facts, or in this case maybe it's more correct to say inoperational facts, negating facts, that just don't give rise to the law. And not only do they not give rise to the law, there's not any subject matter jurisdiction for the judge to adjudicate, to judge anything. When things are so lacking in truth, we don't allow them to even go to the judge's attention, because if there's no truth in it, guess what? You're not going to get any justice. Justice is begotten from truth. And if you're starting at 0, you're going to get 0. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. Truth, you can get some justice. If there's no truth, you're not going to get any justice. So we say those things are unjusticiable. They can't be adjudicated. They can't be decided. They can't be reasoned. They're lacking so severely in truth that if we were to adjudicate anything, only bad things would happen. Only horrific mistakes would happen, whether that mistake is considered good faith or whether that mistake is considered bad faith and on purpose. Nothing good is... How in the hell... We were talking on the phone just there about a 5-year no contact order. And when I got into it, saying, this is how simple this is, counselor, my wife comes in and says, can I have 1 year? No contact. Or she didn't say that. No, neither one of us even knew it was called that. That's such a hideous phrase. 1 year, Travis out of the house during the pendency of the divorce, and then I'll control his comings and goings and the togetherness provision. Judge goes out. Judge comes back in, says we'll go with 1 year, no contact, and then gets in Heather's face and says, but I want you to know, Miss Rouse, that you will not be allowed to be together with Travis and the children at the same time. For 1 year. And Heather lost her goddamn mind. Any mother who loves her husband, who is in the situation she's in, and her situation is just this. It's just Fear City. She has sinned her ass off. Biblical-sized sins. And she doesn't think God can fix it, and she doesn't think she can fix it, and she doesn't think I can fix it, and she doesn't think anyone can make it better. And this is what she's decided to do. And it's eating her lunch. It's not eating her lunch, it's eating her soul. And I could see that on her face. In August 2024, it was... I just wanted to help her. She thinks that she's got to do all these things. Her attorney's just saying, what have I got to do? I've lied, and now I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to do this. No, you don't. You don't do anything. Stop. Stop. Stop everything that you're doing. Identify the truth. Yield to it, and let yourself be informed by it. Stop trying to control the truth. Like Nicole did just there. We got on the phone, we started getting into that just kind of basic conundrum of, so that's what the plaintiff comes in and asks for. We both know she's her attorney, so I think pretty sure by now she knows full well what's going on. That Heather lied to her early on. And maybe Heather didn't lie to her. Maybe Heather told her the truth straight up, and then Nicole said, okay, we can do that. And plus, I'm going to protect my old client. So we can do that. Whatever lie you want to tell. However we want to protect Carl Weems. So she did the same thing to me there on the phone. She said, when I was talking about things that corrupt and nullify and void the civil restraint application, the civil restraint order, the divorce petition, the divorce agreement, the divorce order, which incorporates both. I'm not talking about the civil rights case, the parental rights case. But she would say to me, "Oh, you're represented. You're represented. we shouldn't be talking. We shouldn't be talking about this case. We shouldn't be talking about your 3-year-old cases that are the motivation for everything that has ever come, for, that they were instituted wrongly and that they were continued wrongly. This civil parental rights thing is just nothing more than a continuation of the same subject matterless matters. And they want me in jail. And they want me during this parental rights case, they want me to start talking about the truth, everything affecting Heather, everything affecting the county attorney, everything affecting the judges, and how to fix it and how to solve it. And then they're going to turn around and say, oh, the content of your speech is wrong. There's an order here that says you're forbidden from contact. And what that means is you can't even use legal process to defend yourself. You can't send a Christmas card to your children. The content of your speech is you're not talking like how we want you to talk. You're saying bad things about us. You're saying that we've done bad things to you and that we've done them on purpose and that you've proved them with 73 pieces of evidence already, and now you need to get to 124. And that's why you've been appointed this attorney who is never going to call me. Never going to call me. He doesn't call me yet. He's yeah. I even told her, the part that I told her about, somewhere in there, I was, telling her that I wanted to help her. And so when I say something like that, that's sincere, that's legitimate. I don't want her to get caught up in any of this. I don't want there to be a permanent loss for her. And maybe she deserves it. Maybe she's a really bad person too, and her and the county attorney and Judge Ellefson have been doing this shit for 20 years. I don't know. I think that the fact that she is my wife's attorney, and I know my wife, can do the right thing, and my wife doesn't deserve a permanent loss. I don't care what the hell her sin is. I'm still going to back her up. I'm still going to fight for her and fight for what's right. I don't hate my wife. I don't hate the person. The fault, maybe, the sin, yeah, sure. But not Heather. And that same principled approach to life and living and cooperating with others is what helps Nicole. But she's like she doesn't want to be helped. I don't know. And this idea that she would cut me off, ignore what I'm saying, and say, "Oh, you're represented by someone in this other matter, in this other subsequent matter that's not what I'm talking about." I don't know. It's the same thing she did to me on the phone in jail. I said, "I want to talk to you about phone calls with my kids and this divorce agreement." And, "Oh, I can't talk to you about that. I'm not." I think she said she's not even going to tell Heather. She's not even going to tell Heather. Because she doesn't have to, she said.
I don't know. Maybe she did tell Heather. Maybe she was just trying to bait me into saying something awful or hurtful that she could just take a snippet of what I said on the phone in jail and use it against me or something. Because why? Well, because she's done it before. So, and that's the thing. Like, I could have my brother could show up in a courtroom and say, or my pastor who was at the trial, or Molly Clompett, who was the recorder, could show up and say, yeah, Heather asked for 1 year. She asked for a togetherness provision. Travis wanted to agree to it. The judge said no. Got in Heather's face. The judge said, we'll go with a year. Got in Heather's face. Heather rejected the judge, I guess, or something, and the judge said, okay, 5 years. That's not legitimate. That's not valid. That's not how we do things in America, in an American courtroom. With families. Heather and I are professionals. We've both been to college. We've both been to graduate school. We're in our 40s. We're good people. We're Christians. And this is the service we get from this berserko judge. And then everyone just falls in line trying to conceal it. The sheriff, the jail commander, the jailers, the county attorney. I don't know. All of this goes back for me to the county attorney. Because here's what you're going to find out with me when you talk to anyone I've ever worked with professionally or who knows me personally. I have character. I have character for truth and veracity. I yield to the truth. I have integrity. And I always want to do the right thing. And I prefer to settle things as opposed to be adversarial and fight over them. I mean, very seldom do. I have never needed the help of a judge in a civil matter. I've always known where the equity is. The equity and the fairness wishes that the truth be discovered. That's what equity is. Equity wishes that the truth to be discovered. However it can be discovered. In any way, in any manner, discover the truth. That's the heart and soul of fairness. That's the heart and soul of equity. That's why we say the first principles of democracy are truth, justice, fairness, and impartiality. I don't know. I'm going to have to think about it now. Every time I try to reach this lady, every time I try to reach this woman and share with her a little bit of the truth, I didn't even get to the part where the county attorney asks Mike Webster, when I'm in jail this time, to record me in a special jail unit they put me in, so that they could hear me talking better. And that I'm the one who came up with the idea of, oh, I know what they'll do next. They'll file some parental rights thing. They'll get a hold of Nicole Facio. They'll tell Nicole Facio, hey, you need to do this. I think if Travis does it, if you do it, Travis is going to get so angry, so ill-tempered, that he'll write something in these cases. He'll say something to Jack. He'll say something to Madison. He'll say something to Heather. And we'll just do what we've been doing and take those statements, take those pleadings of truth, or whether they're in an exhibit or whether they're in the pleading itself, and we're going to say, you can't be saying this. Which is more infuriating, the most infuriating thing to me as an American, certainly as an American lawyer who takes an oath. You do not put a prior restraint on my speech, and you sure as shit don't ever get into the content of my speech in a pleading and say it's something I can't say as an American. And that's what's happened. 4 times that has happened. And now my kids are just kind of hanging there. I don't know why Nicole Facio won't level with me. It's clear to me that she's had these situations before, whether they're on purpose or whether they're false. She finds out that at some point my claim really doesn't have any merit. At some point, my client is committing fraud, either in the submission or in what they've omitted from me. And instead of kind of shutting it down and finding another avenue, or sending Carl Weems or my wife to another attorney and saying, here's the problem. You're lying. You're trying to take unconscionable advantage. You're trying to defraud a court. I can't be a part of that. What I can do is help you identify the truth, help you yield to it, and show you what good can come out of it. And then if there's any fear about the other side and what could happen to you and your interest now that you've begun all this in fraud, you call up the other side and you tell them the truth and you ask their forgiveness. That's what we do as attorneys. It's like I have that capacity for days, for weeks, for years, and like none of these attorneys. My wife knows. I only care about one thing, and that's the truth. The truth is God's will. And we spend our entire lives trying to figure out what's God's will, what's God's will, what's God's will. Well, turns out it's the truth. So now I've got to write her. She actually said to me something to the effect of like, don't say that, or what did she say? Don't say that. Don't communicate with me. She said something like that, and then she immediately followed with, "Oh, I don't know. I don't have anything to do with that. I don't know anything about that." And I was just like, yeah, you do. It's on the record in 2 different trials, and it was never denied by anybody because the fix was in already. They already knew what they were going to do. The evidence that Joseph Naring put on a record in 12/5 of 22 was all of those writings about the judge, the county attorney, Joseph Naring, and Nicole Facio, Jackson's paternity, and the affair, and how are we going to solve this problem together, the 2 of us. I mean, that was it. And Heather accepted those letters all the time because we were in agreement. The agreement is what we both intended to agree to and what we accepted from one another. And that agreement was, I don't know what's going to happen next, but we both know that this judge's order for 5-year no contact, it was null and void and was illegal. And because Heather knew that, and because Heather accepted that, that's why she accepted all my letters and didn't say, "Oh, no contact violation, no contact violation." Ooh. She didn't do any of that. She didn't do any of that until I contacted the ISU provost about Carl Weems and Elizabeth Shercliffe, which they are clearly already knew, and Carl Weems and my wife. You know, any spouse of the people who work for ISU have the ability to talk to the ISU provost, including Elizabeth Shercliffe's husband, Benjamin Shercliffe. So that's how you protect Iowa families from government coworker sex. So anyway, I'll probably cut a little bit out of between here and the end of the phone call. Just because we get this information other places, but I was a little bit surprised. I was surprised that Nicole Facio ceases to level with me, and it could be because she's not the consenter or the ratifier or the continuer, but she is the instigator with some of these bad things that the county attorney has done and been a part of. Maybe Nicole is right there equal with, or the instigator, kind of the bad influence on the county attorney, or the county attorney is the bad influence on Nicole. And then, of course, you have all of Nicole's dealings and all of the county attorney's dealings with, like, Judge Ellison and Judge Van Merrill before him. Some of these older guys who were, from the time the building was built, were asserting their own personal preference, prompted by their private desire, injuring someone, and then needing to recruit others like the sheriff, the jailers, the county attorney, private attorneys to help him conceal it. And we have the situation where, when it comes to these civil restraint orders, this one from the judge, he's done this very same exact thing before, where he's abused his power, he's abused his authority, he's abused his discretion, he's adjudicated things where he doesn't have subject matter jurisdiction, and he needs help concealing it. So from 2000 or 2002, when the building was built, to now, the configurations, all the starting places for this is how it works. This is what happened in America with the central government of England, Great Britain, in 1776. When this happens long enough by judges and mayors and governors and so forth, all of the government workers get in on it, and they start asserting their own personal preference, prompted by their private desire, injuring people, trying to conceal the harm and suppress the truth. And it doesn't really matter at that point any time who starts it off. They all know what to do after it's begun. And it could be that Nicole just feels that she's so entrenched over the years in having a role in all those different places that she's just like, I'm not going to level with Travis because it's dangerous to me. It's dangerous to my job. It's dangerous to things. And I said that early on to her. Like, I wrote her and told her that early on. Like, some of the professional rules that you're violating here are not only are they intentionally injuring to me and my family, but these are things that can get your license taken away forever. But yeah. So let's just hope that she says something to Heather. I don't know what she's going to say. But let's hope she says something to Heather, and Heather goes, look, well, I'm not doing this anymore to Travis. I don't care what the outcome is for me or for anyone else, but like, I'm not going to keep him away from his kids another day, whether it's Zoom or whatever it needs to be. But this is just frankly ridiculous. This is all, as my grandfather would say, uncalled for. It's designed to provoke. It's designed to prevent. It's designed to elicit anger and frustration. But sometimes you just need a little Cuba Gooding Jr. from Jerry Maguire. Help me help you. Help me help you. Help me help you. And how Heather can build me and how I can build her and how we can put this all behind us is if we start just yielding to the truth and doing what's right for our children. So I'll sign off now.